Welcome back to the Topwater Podcast. I am Justin Ellis, and we're about ready to get into the month of August KBF Challenge Series. Let's roll in. So, we're back again in great fashion. I mean, it's been kind of an up and down ride doing these sort of tournaments. And the reason why I say it's been an up and down ride is just because there's been a lot of, like, me trying to compete and me getting caught up into the competition. But when I get caught up into the competition, it kind of produces almost a negative effect. Like, and it's not saying that the competition is bad, because I actually believe that competition is how you actually kind of test yourself and to prove yourself, you know, especially in whatever you're trying to do. So if it's something like, you know, carpentry, for example, and you want to prove yourself as a carpenter, that one of the best ways to do it is either through like a sort of like free market sort of idea or competition. So that's kind of the way I look at bass fishing, is the fact that bass fishing for me is the way to prove my skills, is a way for me to test my skills, is the way for me to put the concepts that I'm trying to say and I'm trying to relay to you guys and gals, and be able to articulate those points. And I want to make sure that what I'm saying is proven. Because, I mean, that's the best thing about fishing, is when you come across information that's actually good. When someone's willing to give you good information and not that just, well, you know, there's fish in the water. You know, they're between the top and the bottom. You're just going to have to figure it out. You know, it's almost disheartening when you get that sort of information, because it's like, oh, thanks, guy. You know, that's really what I needed right now, because I'm struggling to figure things out and I'm asking for help, and you're not giving me the right information. So that's what I kind of look at, is I want to give you the best information possible as far as I know right now. Is there better fishermen to actually learn from? Yeah, probably. I bet you there is. Because right now, I mean, I'm not one of those guys that can just go to a lake and just catch fish. I mean, you know, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly where it is. And even though it's like I'm trying to paint myself as kind of an expert, but it's just like, you know what? To say that you are an expert, like you better be one of those guys that can just pull bass out of lakes and you can just catch fish. You know, like I haven't reached the mastery level. And I think this is a good documentation of the fact that I haven't reached that mastery level. And these past few weeks, and I want to also start off by apologizing for not making a video, not doing a podcast last week, and not doing a breakdown. But I've been evolving something, and I've been working on something that I'm not yet ready to reveal. and I'm not yet ready to talk about it onto the podcast and talk about it publicly, but it is something that is coming down the pipe, and it is coming soon. But it's one of those things to where I've never done something like what I'm doing. So for me, it's a very interesting time. It's very interesting to see whether or not what I'm doing on that end, and I'll quit talking about it because I can't really talk about it, and it's not with any sort of company. It's something that I'm doing myself, and it's something that hopefully I can bring a certain type of quality, and that's what it's going to be. Is I want to bring a quality and end into fishing. It's not just the mass-produced, what you have it or anything else, but you got to start small. But I'm working on something. I'm working on it. And it's hopefully, I'm hoping I can figure this out. I mean, I'm really confident that I can figure it out because I've been fishing for long enough to really understand and to know exactly what that I'm looking for, the types of things that I'm looking for. So I'm going to quit talking about it because I'm just going to spill the beans. The more I keep beating around the bush, the more I'm beating into the bush. So I'm just going to quit talking about that. But just needless to say, I want to say that I really do feel bad. Like, I feel kind of it's one of those things to where when you make these sorts of obligations, you don't make these obligations to, I mean, I make them to you guys, and I make them to the people that are watching these podcasts, and I make them to you guys to, like, actually, so that way there is some sort of accountability. Like, I want to be accountable for the things I talk about. And actually, this kind of brings me to my next point, is that I want you guys to actually, when you guys comment, go ahead and drop a question, go ahead and drop a comment, or something that either pertains to the podcast, something that not, I want a little bit more interaction between me and you guys and gals. So go ahead and drop a comment into the section and let me know. Like, hey, I want to know about this. Ask a question. And if I know the answer, I'll know the answer, and I'll try to go through them and figure them out. Right now, it'd be very, very easy because right now I'm rocking like 2 comments, 1 comment sort of thing. So if there's multiple comments, hey, you know what? And see, that helps me out. That helps the algorithm out. That helps the fucking, the stupid bullshit algorithm. I mean, it's so stupid, but it works. It works. You have to pander to that, and it's just kind of. That's the one thing I've noticed about doing all these like podcasts is like you just don't want to pander to like people. You don't want to be like, oh well, you have to have this bait and you have to have this and this certain product. And in reality, like the certain product does matter a little bit, but only if they get it right, and only in certain circumstances. Like, take the Super Spook Jr. The Super Spook Jr. has been around forever. Forever. It really has been around forever, and this has been a staple bait. A staple bait. And I mean, I never fish it. I can honestly tell you that I never fish the Super Spook Junior. I really don't ever fish it because most of the time where I'm fishing, it doesn't call for that. Now today, and where I have been fishing, it kind of calls for it. It really, really does. But I can't discount that lure because it has produced in the past for other people, but it's not produced for me. But I'm not throwing it into the right situation where I should be throwing it in. And I'm starting to put myself into the situations to where I need to actually throw it. So there's a real like need for something like that. But I don't know where I was going with that. I'm going off on tangents. I'm just going off on tangents. It's okay. But I've this tournament so far, I'm going to tell you, I have been producing this is so far has been the best tournament yet for me. And not for the fact that there's less people in this tournament than there was in the last one, and that places me higher because there's less people. No. It actually means I'm actually starting to try to break into that upper echelon sort of. I'm trying. You know, where I've kind of had to make some adjustments. I've made some sort of like, okay, well, we can't fish here because that's not producing the type of fish that I need. Like where I was fishing, because where I was fishing primarily was very, very shallow grass. Like we're talking no more than 5 foot deep. No more. Like, I mean, we're literally anything that I can see, physically see, that's what I was fishing. And I've kind of had to change that up. I've had to like move away from there. But I've also kind of figured something out because I moved away from there. And the thing that I figured out is that bass will tend to kind of school in areas. And I mean, we all hear this concept that you'll come across schools and then there won't be schools. Well, you'll come across bass and then there won't be bass. But that doesn't have sort of any basis in reality until you actually apply those sorts of bases. So what I've actually been doing is moving out of my comfort zone and actually fishing more deep areas, deep rock, river, if you would. Anything that has some sort of depth to it, to where if the bass really needed to, they can suspend off of whatever they are. But they could also go up and shallow. Also, the places that I've been catching bass really have been in places that are, well, you know, just these specific areas. And when I say these specific areas, the reason why I say these specific areas is because of the amount of bait in those areas. It's because the amount of shad that are moving through those areas. And I don't believe that whenever I go there, it's just going to be some sort of free-for-all. You're going to just be like hooking bass left and right. You're going to get the big one there. You're going to get this one here. No. It really doesn't have... I really don't feel like I'm going to stick a big one. But what I am doing is upping my chances to catch a fish. So I'm looking for areas that are upping my chances to catch a fish. So there is one area that I've kind of been cut off to, and I would like to get back into that area. Now, in order for me to get back in the area, there's one or two ways to get there. Either A, I have to go all the way around to this little back sort of like, what it is it's this little cut that for right now is out of the water. And I would have to portage over. I mean, it's not a long spot. When we're talking like maybe 20 yards. It's not that long to portage through. But we're talking like probably doing fairly significant damage to the bottom of my kayak. And I'm not necessarily willing to put my kayak through that sort of trauma or damage, especially with that much weight onto it. Or, you know, it's something that I don't necessarily want to do without having wheels, because it's not dirt, it's rock. So I would be able to like just put wheels under it and just move the kayak if I had wheels, and then just put in on the other side and then just keep going. Which that would be great. I mean, that'd be just the bee's knees. And if I got back there, I bet you I'd be catching 3-4 pounders, because of the fact that it is cut off. There's no people getting back in there. I mean, the lily pads have grown up and they have ballooned up, and it's just, you're not getting back there. And I would love to get back there, because you can't get back there. So I think that's almost one of those places in my mind to where I go, well, people aren't fishing back there. I need to get back there, so that way I can fish that area. Because if I go back there and I get back in there, that means that I'm the only person back there fishing. Now, and that means I'd be the only person back there fishing for, I would almost guess, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, more than a month. So I don't believe that those fish have that long of a memory to be like, oh, these are the lures that are coming past my face all the time. You know, if it's constant, yeah, they're not going to be biting lures all the time. That's right. That's why reaction baits on Springfield Lake work the best rather than presentation baits. Because presentation baits, they've seen constantly. They see it constantly. They react to things. But that's also why you get big bass, because they don't react to things all the time. They really don't. It's hard to pull a big bass out of there, but they're there. They really are there. And I hooked into one. I've hooked into many. Well, when I say many, I've hooked into a few. Usually right around the 5-pound mark. I mean, we're not talking like giants to where, you know, oh, we're fucking sticking 10-pound bass. We're sticking 11-pound bass. You know, yeah. No, this ain't that type of a lake. But you can catch a personal best at that lake. You can. They're there. It's just they're hard to catch, and you're gonna go dink, 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 dink. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Pretty decent, pretty decent, pretty decent. Dink, 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 dink. Big one. And that big one is the one that just blows your mind. Like, I caught this here? What? Are you for real that I caught this here? No. And it keeps people coming back. And I think it's because of the touristiness of the spot. I think it's because of the fact that there's so many people. There's so many people paddling through there. And there's so many people that are just not ethical when it comes down to understanding. And here's another thing is, and I really got to point this out because this actually happened a few days ago. Last week. When I say a few days ago, it actually happened a week ago. I was out there fishing, and I was fishing a school, and this kid and his family, and I mean, of course they didn't know about fishing ethics. They didn't know about, hey, don't, like, if you see somebody fishing in a direction, try to give them as much space as possible while they're fishing that direction. Like, I always kind of keep it into a rule of thumb. If you can't cast to me, then that's enough space. If you can't physically cast to me, then that's good enough. And if you're fishing the middle of the lake, and I have to be in the middle of the lake in order to get around you, like sometimes I'll go around. Like I won't, if I can tell that you're casting to the opposite bank and pulling it back, you keep casting to the opposite bank, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around. So I'm going to go behind you. And I think that's and anybody who is not a fisherman, please, look, the best thing you can do is to not paddle through or not boat through the exact area that someone's trying to fish. Now, most of the time when you have people on boats usually understand because they're also usually fishermen. They usually kind of get it. But sometimes you get these tourist kayakers and they want to, they want to paddle around. We're experiencing nature. And that's great. That's great for someone to want to get out there and experience nature. I mean, I say more power to you. But just understand that there's sort of an ethics coming when it comes down to dealing with fishermen. That you may not understand those ethics. And as fishermen, we need to be patient with those people because they don't understand. Like, it doesn't do us any good to get ultra mad at a group of people that go through where we're trying to fish and spook bass and spook the fish. It doesn't do us any good to get mad at those people because all that's going to do is just make people hate bass fishermen. That's really all it does. Like, it doesn't help us at all. I mean, you can't explain it. But if it's something to where you're kind of upset about it at the time, just let it go. Let it go. Because guess what? You can anchor off right there for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Those bass will be back. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. And it's something that I've really had to work on working at this lake. Like, trying to put in work on this lake, trying to, do some damage. Sometimes it gets frustrating. Sometimes it gets downright just aggravating the way that people will actually conduct themselves on the lake. Like, I mean, you'll have people who don't know what they're doing and just literally casting where you're trying to fish. Like, I had a guy to where he was floating down the opposite direction, fishing the opposite bank, and he had a giant swim bait in the middle of winter and was burning it. And when I say burning it, I mean burning it. I mean, he was just shoom, shoom, and it's just like, for one thing, the water temperature is 40 degrees, bro. Nothing is moving that fast. I am not moving that fast. Like, and I'm warm-blooded. And I don't want to move that much. You know, I mean, I kind of do. I kind of want to stay warm. But, I mean, he's just sitting there burning this giant-ass swim bait down at the bank. And it's like, it didn't make any difference to me that he was just fishing this bait all completely wrong. I mean, I wanted to stop the guy and be like, hey, bro, you need to slow down. Like, when you throw that out, when you're just and just burn it back to your kayak, you need to, for one thing, stop, anchor off, and then cast out and just slow roll that thing. Because you have to think, in 40-degree water, you're going to have to not bring that bait back as quick as possible. You have to take your time. But as this dude was coming down the bank, and as I was coming up the other side, so he's coming this way, I'm coming this way, and I'm fishing my opposite side, you know, and then all of a sudden the dude starts throwing to my side of the bank. Just because you can cast there doesn't mean that you should be fishing there. That's a bad ethical decision. You know, like there's some gray areas, but when you're fishing within casting distance of me, like literally all I did was cast out and I just let it sit. I just let my stuff sit right there. My line and all. If he was going to fucking catch my stuff, he was going to catch my stuff and I was going to be rude with him. I mean, that's just how it was going to be. Because it's like, hey man, I'm going to put you in a bad situation. If you want to be the guy that is screwing other people's fishing up, then I'm going to let you be in that position. And then when you are in that position, I'm going to let you know that you shouldn't be in that position because you're a fisherman. I can talk to you as a fisherman to fisherman. We're on the same level. So we're talking on some sort of equal sort of level. That's where we were coming from. That's what it would have came down to. But he didn't, because of the fact that I cast my line out and I created a barrier. I'm like, hey, don't fish here. You know. So, and he kept moving. Now this brings me back to the other point, which I know I, beat around the bush, came around my face, and now we're back to the butt. So, when it comes down to the tourists that are there just paddling through stuff, I tend to have way more patience for these people. I tend to have more patience than, honestly, what I should. And the reason why is because I look at it as they're just paddling through. They're going to be in and out of this spot within seconds. And if I just allow them to pass and I don't say anything rude to them, and I'm not rude to them, then we're not going to have a bad interaction. Yeah, maybe what they're doing is unethical as far as the fisherman's standpoint, but what they're doing is we're just paddling back to the launch point. That's what they're doing. So you have to kind of bring it to that sort of, you have to bring in what they're thinking about too. It's about sharing the waters. And it's easy to get upset and say, "Oh, you're screwing up my fishing. You're screwing up my fishing." Get the, for the lack of a better term, the cunt nod. You're screwing up my fishing. You're doing it wrong. You just don't want to be that guy. So when it comes down to dealing with ethics, you also have to understand where the person's coming from that is on the opposite side. And possibly could I told those people, hey, would you mind maybe trying to paddle around where I'm trying to fish? Maybe would you try to, not try to, be in this vicinity? I could have educated them on why this isn't a good thing, and I didn't. So, possibly that could make further altercations down the road, but also at the same time, it's not that big of a deal. It's not such a big deal to where I need to stop these people to tell them that, oh, you're doing something wrong. No, it's not that big of a deal. What it is just, it's people trying to enjoy their time. It's me trying to enjoy my time. And it kind of conflicted a little bit, but the conflict was really nothing. So since the conflict was really nothing, it is what it is. It was nothing. So when it comes down to the tourist people, you have to be patient. And I think when it comes down to fishing, I just keep learning I need to be more patient. I need to be more patient with people. And I need to be more patient with myself. And I need to be more patient in areas to where I don't have enough patience. Now, does it mean that I need to be patient in every facet of my life? No. Because if you don't have action, there is no growth. Without action, you have to take action in order to better your life. So there's areas that I will be absolutely impatient. And understand this, that anybody who's watching this that does know me, I can be very impatient. Very, very impatient. But also at the same time, it depends on the situation. If I'm dealing with something that is stupid or ridiculous, I have very little patience. It's hard to be patient with that. Now, if I'm dealing with something that's stupid because of ignorance, it's easier for me to be patient. If someone's stupid because of being stupid, then that's... I'm just going to give you the Trump face. If you're going to be stupid for the sake of being stupid, then, well, you're doomed to get what you get. But if you're acting stupid because you're ignorant about what's going on and what's happening around you, then I have a little bit more patience for that. I have a little bit more patience for somebody who is not on the same level of what I'm doing, because what I'm doing is different than what everybody else is doing. And that's really what it comes down to. The more I get into fishing, the more I keep diving into this, the more I just go, I need to have patience. I need to have more patience. I need to be more patient. I need to be more patient. In this aspect of my life, I need to be more patient. In this aspect of my life, there just needs to be more patience. I just need to be more patient with people, And so I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but that's fine. But that patience really came into a factor in today's fishing session, because when I came back from my vacation, I was a little dinged up. My pride was hurt. I wasn't in what you would say a good frame of mind to compete. And when I say that, I mean there was an air of desperation to get things done. There was an air desperation to correct the I wanted to make up for the vacation. I wanted to make it up. And so I went out to Fellows Lake and I fished, and it's like, you know what? I'm going to figure this lake out. Because I went to North Fork Lake in order to figure out striper fishing, and I'm going to tell you that is completely 100% out my wheelhouse. That is not out my wheelhouse. It is not this. That is not my thing. It really is. It's a completely different way to fish, and I wasn't good at it because it's not the way I fish. And so coming back, I ended up going out to Fellows Lake, and I fished and I fished and I fished and I fished, and I didn't catch anything for a little bit until I got back into the back of the pocket, this pocket that I was in. Well, it was kind of like more of an arm of the lake, because there's two arms of the lake, major arms. You got the main one, and you got an offshoot. Well, I went back into the offshoot, and I wasn't catching bass. I wasn't catching anything. I take that back. I was catching stuff. I was catching bluegill. And that doesn't count in the bass fishing tournament. And if it did, it wouldn't be much. It really wouldn't. So, whenever I was fishing, and I was getting back into the back of this pocket, there started to be timber. And then it went from, whatever, I don't know, it was like 20-something foot, and it went up to like 3. And that's where I started finding bass. I started finding bass in these shallower waters. And I think the reason why is because the water's still up. I looked at satellite image of that area where I was fishing. That's not underwater, mind you. So, there's a lot of stuff that's back there that's underwater currently that's not usually underwater. That's something to actually kind of consider, is the fact that the water level of this lake is actually rising. And it's actually being sustained. That's something to really kind of understand at this point. Because where I went back to a creek. The mouth of the creek that came into this arm. And when I got back to that creek, there was a tree that had fallen to where it covered from bank to bank. So in order for me to get past it, I would actually have to maneuver myself past. But before I actually got back past that tree that had fell in the water, I didn't hook into it, but I got a bite from a bass that I would have to say is about 4 pounds. And I say 4 pounds because I think it might have been 5, but I also think that when my brain perceives a fish that is about 1 pound too heavy, so I'll say when I thought I saw it, I thought it was a 4 to 5 pound bass. In actuality, it's probably a 3 to 4 because I need to make sure that I minus 1 pound off for bias, because for some reason I always think a bass is 1 pound heavier than what it is. It's just I don't understand. It's just whenever I see the bass, I go, that's this. And it's always 1 pound less. It's always. So I ended up catching, I didn't catch it. I didn't even hook into it. Because the thing is when it had it in its mouth, because I had an underspin. And when it came up and when it spit the hook, I remember it. It came up and it opened its mouth. And the way that the bait was positioned in the mouth, I could see the hook point. Like, and it was pointing towards me. It wasn't hooked into anything. It just had this thing shoved in his mouth and it couldn't get it out. There was no hook in this fish, and I was fighting it for a second. Like, I was pulling it out the thing, and it was just wedged in its mouth. And it came up, and it shook its head, and it came right out. And I almost attributed the bad luck from the trip before to that. From the podcast before. If you guys are listening to this right now, I urge you to go back and listen to the last podcast. Because, I mean, it's an interesting story of, you know, a vacation that you just want to go right and nothing goes right. Which, I mean, everybody has those sorts of vacations. But, you know, it's kind of whatever. But back to the original point. That day, I had like 4 bites. And every single one of them, I set the hook as hard as I could. When I mean I set the hook as hard as I could, I mean I wrenched it. I wrenched it like it was like a jig bite, to where you just hammer it down, or like a punch bite, to where you like, oh, you have a bite, well, I'm gonna hammer this bit. And there was no hook in any of these bass. I don't know how they had this to where they just didn't get a hook, but they never got a hook. Never did. So then we fast forward to the next day. Maybe, yeah, it was the next day. I went out the next day because I needed to redeem myself. Need some redemption. And I go back and I go into a little cove, and I ended up catching this 13.5-inch bass. It was awesome. It was the best feeling in the world to catch this bass. It was awesome. I loved it. Just flipped into some bushes, and I felt the and then I saw my line swimming off, and I just set the hook. And, you know, it was pretty perfect. It was perfect. You know, it made me feel good. It made me feel like I wasn't a loser. But anyway, I mean, that bass was kind of insignificant in a way, but it meant that I was kind of on the right path. You know, kind of on the right where I needed to be. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to figure this out. So we're going to fast forward again from there, because I'm just going to breeze right over that one, because, I mean, it wasn't really important. Where it was pretty predictable. I mean, it was on a main lake point on the non-windy side. So there's a lot of wind going on, so I tuck back into an area to where it's not very windy, and I'm able to actually stand up in my kayak and actually flip without just being blown to the other side of the lake. And, of course, like I said, you just pitch in there and you just feel it. And you're like, all right, yeah. You know, and that was great. So fast forward from there to the next week, because that was the week that it doesn't really matter. But fast forward to the next week, I go back to Springfield Lake to try to push some fish on the board, because I'm trying to put fish onto the board for this kayak tournament, the KBF Challenge Series, and I'm trying to like do the best I can. I'm just trying. And I go there, and I ended up finding schooling bass that are feeding on schooling shad. And it was a fantastic time. I mean, I think I hooked like 3 or 4 bass. I mean, none of them were anything that was sizable, but it was fun. And that's what I really want to hit home, is it was fun. It was fun to do. It didn't help me at all, but it was fun. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed getting out there and like just experiencing it all. And the only picture, and see, I sometimes I feel like I get way too caught up into like Instagram and Facebook, and I gotta post this, I gotta get this footage, I gotta get that footage, I gotta do this. And it was just so good to not even just worry about any of this. And I just fished. I just fished, and it just felt so good. It felt so good to just fish. And I wasn't catching any big bass, but I was putting some bass in the boat. It was fun. I was having a great time. I mean, I think the biggest bass I caught was like 13 inches. Maybe 13 inches. Most of them, I was just like, bloosh. You're not even good. Nope. You're not even going to measure. But it was fun because they were schooling up and they were busting. When the bass are feeding on shad, I mean, when the shad are ticking the water, you can see these little, it looks like little raindrops. Just beep, 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 you know. But when bass start feeding on the shad, it looks like someone's throwing rocks in the water. And you're like, oh, I need to get over there. Oh, I gotta go. And you just get excited. And you're like, oh, crap, I gotta get over there. And then you start just paddling hard to get over there. And you're chucking baits as far as you can because you're just close enough. Just close enough. And it was a great time. I had a wonderful time. But it didn't help. Didn't help me at all. Not even a little. Don't know what to tell you, but it was fun. I had a blast. I had more fun that one day than I had in the other tournaments. Because I put so much pressure on myself to compete in these tournaments that I wasn't necessarily having fun. It was about business. It's about focus. It's about concentration. You have to do this. You have to do it. You know, there's a structure. You got to, and it's like the biggest bass. And it's like sometimes I just want to wreck some dinks. You know, I just want to get on a school of bass. I just want to go fishing. I just want to have fun. You know, I don't want I could leave the competition behind for a second and just go, you know, I just want to have fun. And that's what I did. I had fun. I wasn't taking pictures. I wasn't videoing it. I wasn't worried about YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or any of that crap. And I just had some fun. And it was, it's what I needed. It was what I needed. It was a refreshing thing to happen. It's just, you know what? Just to have fun. Just to let it all go and just be like, screw it. I'm having fun today. I'm not worried about a damn podcast. I'm not worried about more views. I'm not worried about likes. I'm not worried about somebody commenting on some bullshit fucking post that I put up of me. Hey, check it out. You know, it's just, at a certain point, you just got to be yourself. You just got to have fun. And that's what I did. I had fun, and it was amazing. It was amazing just to not think about being human for a little bit. Not having to like, well, I have to have something to show. And it was great because I had nothing to show for it. It didn't help me at all, but it helped me so much. And it clued me into something to where I didn't really think about it, but later on I put it together. That where I was seeing those balls of shad, I don't need to fish the balls of shad. I needed to fish the cover around them. I needed to fish the things that the fish would relate to in order to ambush those things. And I did that. And I ended up catching some pretty substantial bass. I caught a couple of 14s. I caught a 15. The 15 didn't count because the picture I took was way too... I never got a good picture of it. So it didn't count when I released it. So, it was kind of... But that comes back down to the whole... Just let it go. Okay, well, it's already gone. I don't need to hammer myself over this stuff. What I need to do is just accept the fact that I let this fish go without having a proper picture of it. That I just need to accept it. Don't dwell on it. Just accept it. Move on. It's done. It's over. Move on to the next thing because that's not going to help you. The only thing that you can take away from that is have a better picture. Have a better picture and then you're good to go. But that's the way it is. And that's what I did. I mean, I was like, screw it. Whatever. I didn't get the picture. Whatever. I still got a picture. I can still post that stuff to Instagram. But the creme de la creme came just right at the end of the day. Just, what I'm going to do? I'm just going to toss it back and I'm just going to let it. Yeah. I'm just going to toss one back. Let it just sit back there. I'm just going to pull it in. I'm just going to, I'm just going to reel it in. Just toss one behind me. I caught a monster. Well, not a monster, but I mean, kind of a monster. We're talking about, it's probably about a 5-pound bass. It was like 17.5 inches. Felt like a 5-pounder. It was a good bass. It would have been a great one to get on film. But that goes to hell. That goes to hell. So, the best thing you could do is just, just let it go. Let stupid shit go. Don't get caught up in it. Just be like, you know what? This is dumb. Whatever. I don't need it. That being said, I want to encourage you guys to get out there and go fishing. If you guys aren't out there already fishing, you need to get out there and go fishing. If you've never been fishing before, get out there and go. Get a fishing license, get a pole, get what you can afford and just go. And it's going to be hard. There's a learning curve to it. You're probably not going to catch fish for a while. It's part of it. And then once you start catching one, you catch one, that's luck. You catch two, that's a pattern. All right? That's the way to look at it. You catch one, that's luck. You catch two, that's a pattern. So just keep that in mind when you guys are getting out there and getting after it. Also, if you're getting out there and if you're bank fishing around weeds, grass, and all that sort of stuff, make sure you wear protection from ticks, chiggers, mosquitoes, poison ivy, make sure you do protect yourself from that because it can be a pretty bad hazard. And if you're getting out there on a kayak, make sure you're wearing your PFD. And if you're on a boat, wear a PFD when you're running. Just safety first. By all means, take the safe approach first, fun second. Because there's no point in having fun if well, you're never going to be able to do it again. So that's the way I look at it. So I'll see you guys out on the water. I'm Justin Ellis.